Hi, and welcome back to 1 Acre in the Napa Valley, here in the Yountville AVA for episode number 7. It's our planting episode, and if you take a look through the vineyard, you can see that we've got the vast number of the vines already planted. Over the last 2 weeks or so, we've been doing that. Today has been just a perfect day to finish up our planting. It rained a little bit this morning, but as you can see, it's just a beautiful day with very moderate temperatures that's just great for the plants. Now, of course, when it comes to planting, of course, you need to have a hole in the ground, and that's what I'm doing here. Usually what I'll do is I'll dig all the holes in the row first. Now, if we take a look down inside here, this is about the right size for a vine hole, and the soil here, if you can see, it's a beautiful volcanic soil, and it's just full of nutrients. In fact, it has got such a beautiful smell to it that I hope will be translated into the wine. This field has never actually been planted over the decades of time that it's been here. It's just been a pasture that's been tilled under every year. And because of that, there's about 2 to 3 feet of just beautiful topsoil. In fact, it's almost just like compost. Really beautiful soil. You can see in spots where there's worms and different organisms in it that make it just perfect. Now, you may notice here too that I'm running the emitter. That's kind of typical. That helps with the digging and gets the soil nice and moist before we put the plants in. One of the things too I want to point out about the hole itself is we want to get close as we can right here to the growing stake, and we'll put the plant right up against it so we can train it right up. And we want to train the plant up on the side opposite of where the drip line is so it doesn't have a bend in the trunk. So let me grab one of the plants and we'll put it in. Well, here we have our last flat of 337. Only 4 plants left. You may remember seeing these flats in the nursery when the plants were put in the topsoil that we have here that they started to grow in. Before we put our plant in the ground, let's take a look one more time at some of the little details we see. Now, if we look up close, we can see that this is where the shoot has pushed out. This is the scion. That's actually the Cabernet part of the plant. And then, of course, the rootstock is all that you see down here. If I turn it just a little bit, you'll be able to see at the graft union, if you remember from our grafting video where we did the dipping of the wax, and so that's where it's actually been dipped and pushes back just a little bit as it starts to grow. Now, one of the important aspects of planting is to know how deep to plant the little vine. Don't want to be too deep, but don't want to be too shallow. So a good rule of thumb is to use 1 fist width above the ground for where the graft union would be. So just about that high. So the soil should be about this level here. So that then decides how deep the hole would actually be. So let's take our little friend over there and we'll put him in the ground. There's actually an orientation to the plants that we put in the hole based upon where the scion comes out of the vine itself. You can see that the scion actually pushes out to the side. It doesn't come straight out of the top of the plant. So whether we put it in the hole this way off to my left or we put it in the hole this way off to my right could have a bearing on the plant. What we want to do is plant it in such a way that our little shoot is as close as possible to the pencil stake. That way when it grows, it'll be nice and straight. If we were to put it in the opposite way, like you see here, we would actually have a curve in the trunk over time. So we'll orient it once we get it in the hole in that way. The next thing we'll do is take it actually out of the pot itself. And I'll just shake it with my hands over the end, and it'll just slide out very easily. Now, if we take a look up close, we can see all the root system of the little plant as it grew in the pot. And as you can see, it's kind of root bound a little bit, but we'll break that up just slightly as we lay it in. Now, I'll set this very carefully in the hole, and as I put it in there, I'm going to set it down in and just break away some of the soil that was in the pot and just push it up against my pencil stake oriented just like we talked about. Now, there's about 1 fist width down, and if you take a look down in the hole, you can see that we've also left some room down in here for the little roots that have broken away so that they've got some room to grow straight down. Next, I'll just take the soil and we'll gradually put it back in and compress that a little bit as we go. and keeping our little vine up close to that pencil stake, so that'll keep it growing just properly. As I push the dirt in, it's important not to get too many weeds in there. Some of the dry grass is okay, but we'll get that, and if there's any dirt clods, just kind of break them up and then just kind of compress it as we go down in. I'll get all the dirt that was dug out, nice pretty soil, and pushed right down in. And we've got our plant, as you can see, oriented right to this side. Get it nice and compressed down inside and get the rest of it down in there. Now, there's just a couple more things to do. One of them is put the milk carton around it and to put a little tie to keep it nice and straight. Now, before I do that, one last thing I usually do when I'm planting is I'll just stand up and just push with my foot just slightly down in to give it a little bit of compression, and that'll make a little depression for the water to flow into too. So I'll grab the milk carton and some of the tie tape, be right back. So what I like to do is put a little bit of tape, tie tape, down low on our plant just to kind of stabilize it a little bit. Just depending on what it may encounter, or just over the next few years or so, it's nice to kind of have it nice and stabilized there. And we can put a little knot in that, and that'll hold it in place, kind of slide that down a touch. Now you can really see the orientation of the little scion here in relation to the pencil stake. And when it grows, it'll be nice and straight, won't have a curve in it, and it'll grow right on up, and we'll tie it as it goes. Now there's just one thing left to do, and that's put our milk carton around it, or in this case, a fruit punch carton. These are pretty inexpensive, and they come in boxes of about 300 or so. This one happens to be Jersey Lynn Farms Fruit Punch. We like to have as fruity a Cabernet as possible, and so I do feel that this contributes in some way. It's kind of a little inside secret I have, but that's why we use these. Of course, you can get them in orange crates or milk cartons or anything else, but this just happened to be what they had. Now, when you put this on, it's important that you be real careful with it, because it's a real fragile, especially as you go down over top of the graft union, and slide it right down, and it'll go right up against that tie that we put there. And then you can kind of set the drip emitter right inside. And then you can pile up some of the dirt around the base of it, and that'll give it some nice protection as you go along. And one other thing you can do, if you're in an area where it's real windy, or there's a problem with something encountering the box itself, you can always take a piece of duct tape and wrap it around, and that'll keep it nice and stable. But for here, just with the moist soil, that'll hold it real well in place. Now that all the vines are almost in, the next most important thing to give some consideration to is the watering schedule. Right now with the little vines, the size that they are, 2 to 3 gallons every 3 days is perfectly adequate. But what we want to do is progressively increase the length of time between watering and the quantity of watering. Now this is going to depend on the soil, but for here, this soil, I'll go to about 4 gallons every 4 days, then maybe 6 gallons once a week, and then even longer periods of time with greater quantity. What this will do is it will drive the roots down deep, so we don't develop a root structure by very frequent watering that's very shallow. And that's what will really make the roots and the vines reach for all those nutrients in the soil. So in addition to monitoring the water as we go through the summer, we'll also tie up all the little shoots as they grow up the trellising system and develop into vines. Well, it really has been quite a journey over the last 10 months or so, as we've gone from bare ground to what we see today, a fully operating vineyard, the water's on, and the plants are growing. Sure appreciate your tuning in as we've gone through each one of these episodes, and all the nice comments that we've received as we've gone along. Hope it's been helpful. If you're ever in the Napa Valley, just send me an email. Go to oneacrewines.com and you can send me an email right through the website. I'd be happy to give you a tour here and also in the Oak Knoll District. But until then, thanks again for watching. We'll see you soon.